you have studied the United States politics over time, and most times we have discussions. So it means you know how important moral issues are in politics, in other climes, in other democracies. So if we decide to look at that critically, for someone, a man or a woman who's, for instance, promises people that I will only go once, decides to turn around and renege on that same promise, what moral justification do we now place on such individual in future promises?
You would, the beauty of humanity itself is that there are always two sides to the coin. Now, if today I promise you, I say, okay, I won't run for governor, I won't run for Senate, or I won't run, and tomorrow dynamics change, and all of a sudden I decide that maybe, or I discover that most of my promises I've not been able to achieve them, and constitutionally I'm still empowered to run. What is wrong? Then explain it. Say, look, gentlemen, I still want to run for the remaining time that I'm entitled to under the law. Unfortunately, if I had promised you that I was going to do just one time, it's not looking not feasible. You see, when we sit outside, we believe that things, development itself, to construct a road, a major road in this country, will take about 3, 4, 5 years. Any major road. Now, before you get off, years? Yes, it could take, like, look at, if we're doing a highway from Lagos to, say, Abuja, for example, it could take that long. But look at even the Lokoja-Abuja road. Before I got to the Senate, that road was under construction. And I left the Senate 2 years ago. So that means a total of 6 years. It's not finished.
Some people will really disagree with you on that and say it is government's, indecision sometimes, and government's
inefficiency.
Because if you look at this same Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, today is Bicotany, tomorrow is Julius Berger. No, don't go to site again. And we go back and forth. So the people suffer at the end of the day. So who truly is government or governance for, if not for the people?
It is for the people. I agree with you entirely. The Lagos-Ibadan road is an embarrassment to the government and to the people of this country. Now, that is the business route in this country. But take it from me. To reconstruct that road, the traffic is like we need a diversion. The traffic, the volume of traffic plying that road every day will not reduce. And when you now have workers there will be a nightmare at the end of the day. People will spend hours on that road. So some of this needs to be managed somehow. I'm not in the construction industry, but I see these things and I understand that, look, it's different from buying a package on the shelf and getting it, to start working on your PC. They are two different issues. Now, governance itself is not Tea Party. I have been a part of it. I had a bill that ran almost 4 years with me in the Senate. It never got passed. I heard that thing was discussed about a week or two ago in the Senate again. So there are things that we expect that because of bureaucracy and other distractions, they don't work the way we set them to work. But I've looked at it. You looked at the U.S. I've looked at 2 vice presidents who later became president, ran the course of the term of their predecessor, and decided, as a matter of fact, in the case of Lyndon Johnson, they said it startled the whole world that he decided not to run again. It was not that he wasn't qualified to run. He had spent 6 years, but he was still entitled to a second term because he merely concluded somebody's first term. So we should get this one straight. Constitutionally, because we copied the U.S. Constitution, constitutionally, our president is entitled to a second term. There is no question about that. Now, if he is going to be persuaded not to run, it will be on a different ground. It's not on the ground of whether he has the right or not. He has the right. Now, Truman completed the term of Roosevelt, and he was 88 years old. He said, that was by the time He died in 1972. But by the time he was living, his time ended in 1969. I mean, I'm sorry. That is, I'm mixing the two now. Truman, his own time ended earlier because he had stayed almost 3 or 4 years. Roosevelt only stayed 1 year between 1944 and 1945. And he now took over. He stayed another 4 years. Now he decided that he was no longer going to run because he was already an old man. He was getting much, he was close to 70 at that time. Now, here we are. If the president decides not to run, it will be his own decision not to run. It's not a constitutional issue.
But if all of this continues this way, don't you think that it will ultimately affect the performance of your party at the elections?
Well, again, let's look at it. Either the president runs or doesn't run. The struggle for power will always be there. Somebody else wants to take your seat. The other party will continue to try. And now, if for any reason, if they're able to capitalize on the present climate, then that will be their luck. But it's not a constitutional matter. So, and people would always want to run for that office. Being president is a very powerful position. There's no question about it. But the question we should be asking ourselves, those people moving around, have they demonstrated that they have something new for Nigeria? That is the question.
You don't think they have?
I don't think so. I see the performance of everybody around. You know, we have whatever name. They're out there. We see what they're doing. So it's not a question of, I mean, this is Nigeria. These guys are not going to be imported from somewhere else.
So does it mean that this is not really about development or the people?
No. It's about power. It's about power, and it's about power, nothing more. Holding on to it. And there are so many incentives in this country. I mean, Nigerian president, by all means, apart from in terms of his powers within this country, even allowed within our constitution, is by far more powerful than the U.S. president.
You know,
apart from
sorry, what about the populace here?
Yes.
I mean, we keep thinking, at the end of the day, yes, people are expected to come out and vote, but do those votes really count? If they do, will these politicians be acting this way?
Well, let's look at it this way. Every time I have looked at my state, Ekiti, for example, the new government introduced the politics of big-time money, buying votes on, on election day. Yes. So now, the next person coming in understands the game now. It's about money. And people are looking at it. Many of the people who will go out to vote, they will say they might not see this man again. So they take what they get on that day. They say, oh, this is their own share now. So
there hasn't been election.
The orientation has become very bad. No, there was election in 2011.
I thought it was the courts.
No, we had election for the Senate in 2011.
Oh, okay, for the Senate.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And relay my experience of what happened. So it's when you look at it, everybody now understands the fact that, look, you are going to election, you need to be loaded with a lot of money. There is possibility that you start buying votes on the line. Because nobody has gotten prosecuted for it.
Let me ask you a question. Who is a politician in Nigeria? Are they a bunch of some jobless Nigerians who, without being in office, can't actually survive, don't have any other means of livelihood? Because when you use the word lucrative, that politics has become a lucrative enterprise in the country, it got me thinking. I said, maybe the man or woman who comes into politics truly doesn't have any other legitimate business that can keep him floating until he gets into power, into office, rather.
Let me even redefine that and say government. Because when you consider somebody who was heading the pension fund, see the kind of money that is stashed away. Consider the old IG who had about 17 billion in his account. So what kind of business are you going to be running to get such funds? And these people, many of them, they're working on the streets. So what is the disincentive for people to struggle to get to government? They are now the bigger businessmen You see, it's like, I mean, the things